She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just sat there silent, still while a piece of her identity hit the floor. Her hair, cut by a classmate in the middle of class, laughter roared, phones recorded, and the teacher pretended not to see. That moment should have broken her, but it didn't, because this wasn't just about hair. It was about power, about how a quiet black girl in a hoodie became a target simply for existing in a space that didn't want to see her win. Imani Rhodes came from a side of town people don't put on brochures, where silence was survival, where respect wasn't handed out, you had to earn it. So when the daughters of privilege tried to humiliate her, they thought they'd win. They didn't know who she was. And worse, they didn't know who her uncle was. She never threw a punch, never raised her voice. But by the end of the week, the whole school had changed. And Chloe Vickers, the girl who held the scissors, she learned that not every fight makes noise. Some battles are won in silence. This story isn't just about bullying. It's about dignity, about resilience, and about the kind of strength you only see when you really start looking. Because sometimes the quietest girls in the room are the ones rewriting the rules, and sometimes the hoodie they fear is worn by a warrior. Before we dive into this story, let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Imani Rhodes didn't talk much, didn't laugh in the halls like the other girls, didn't raise her hand unless she had to. She just kept her hoodie up, head down, and moved through the world like a shadow no one remembered seeing. At Rock Hill High, silence like that was rare and dangerous. This was a school built on noise-funded noise, the kind that came from cheerleaders screaming in matching uniforms, boys in varsity jackets slapping each other's backs, and counselors giving pep talks like they were motivational speakers at a tech conference. Rock Hill High didn't make room for quiet black girls, especially not ones from South Franklin, especially not ones like Imani. She arrived on a Tuesday. Fog still clung to the streets, and her mom had barely said a word during the drive. "You got your schedule?" her mother asked. Voice tight, Imani nodded, pulling the paper from her hoodie pocket, folded 3 times, creased at the edges. "Keep your head down," her mother added, "and stay out of drama. We didn't come this far for you to get caught up in mess." Imani didn't argue. She never did. The truth was, she wasn't planning to fight. She wasn't even planning to speak unless someone asked her a direct question. She wasn't afraid. She was done. Done with transferring. Done with teachers who asked if she was okay at home. Done with people who heard her zip code and thought they already knew her story. This school, with its polished floors and chrome water fountains, was just another building she had to survive. So she stepped through the main entrance like a ghost. No makeup, no lip gloss, no name brand kicks, just a worn gray hoodie, thrift store jeans, and a backpack that had seen too many school years. She kept her eyes low, her steps measured, but she felt them, the stares, the double takes, the micro pauses in conversation as she passed. She didn't need to hear the words. She'd been in enough rooms to know what they were thinking. "Who's that? She from around here? Oh, she must be a transfer." Her first class was AP Lit. The teacher, a thin woman with perfectly ironed slacks and a Harvard mug she clearly wanted everyone to notice, looked up as Imani entered. "Imani Rhodes." Imani nodded. "Welcome. You can take that seat back row, near the window." Of course, always the back row, always near the window. Imani liked it that way. From there, she could see everything. Chloe Vickers sat 2 rows ahead, center seat, surrounded by girls who laughed just a little too loudly and reapplied lip gloss every 10 minutes like it was a class requirement. Chloe had that air about her like everything she did was rehearsed for Instagram, and everyone else was just extras in her daily performance. She noticed Imani within seconds, not because she cared, because she clocked people. That's what girls like Chloe did. They scanned for weakness, for anything out of place, for anyone who didn't know the rules. And Imani, she wasn't just out of place. She didn't care to fit in. By lunch, the building had already taken its first bite out of her. Imani moved through the cafeteria, tray in hand, eyes scanning for an empty seat far away from the noise. She found one near the edge of the room, under a flickering light. Perfect. But before she reached it, someone slid into the seat, didn't smile, didn't apologize, just took it. Imani turned and walked to another spot, sat alone, ate in silence. That's when she heard it, the laugh, Chloe's, high-pitched, too clean, practiced. Imani didn't look up, but she knew. She knew the way girls like Chloe moved. Pretty smiles, poison tongues. They didn't punch, they sliced. In her last class of the day, history, the teacher asked them to go around and introduce themselves. When it was Imani's turn, she kept it simple. Imani, I just moved here. That's it. Chloe tilted her head from where she asked, voice sweet, South Franklin. Imani replied. Someone behind her muttered, damn. Chloe smiled. Oh, that explains the hoodie. Laughter, just a few, not loud, but enough. The teacher didn't say a word. Imani didn't either. She just took out her notebook and began to sketch. Not because she was ignoring them, because it calmed her hands, because she didn't need to fight battles with words. Not yet. Not this one. Not today. Wednesday morning came heavy. The kind of heavy that hangs on your shoulders before you even get out of bed. Imani stood in front of her mirror, tugging the drawstrings of her hoodie until the sides closed in near her face. She tied them into a knot, the kind that said, don't talk to me, don't touch me, don't even look too long. Downstairs. Her mom was already gone. Double shift at the hospital. No breakfast. No check-in. Just a note on the counter. Be good. Don't start anything. She read it twice, crumpled it, then stuffed it in her hoodie pocket with the rest of the things she never said. At school, the halls were louder than usual. It was picture day. Kids posed in front of the gym doors like it was the red carpet, fresh edges. New sneakers, wide grins, even the teachers dressed up. Suddenly more cheerful, plastic joy everywhere. Imani kept her head down and her hoodie up. As she walked past the office, the receptionist called out, you'll have to take that hood down for your photo. Honey, Imani didn't respond, didn't even pause, just kept walking, because that photo, that wasn't for her. She didn't need to be in their yearbook to know she survived the year. Third period, gym class. Imani hated gym, not because she wasn't athletic, she was. She could outrun most of the girls and out-push up half the boys, but gym was noisy. It was full of eyes, and eyes led to opinions. Opinions led to whispers. Whispers led to names that stuck like glue. Today, Coach Ramsey had them running relay sprints. Imani jogged slowly to the end of the line, not wanting to draw attention. Too late. Chloe was already there. Leggings too tight, ponytail too perfect. Voice just loud enough for everyone to hear. Oh, hey, it's Franklin again, Chloe said, turning toward Imani. You run track out there, or just from cops? A few kids snorted. Coach didn't hear, or pretended not to. Imani didn't answer. She stepped to her mark, fingers tapping her thigh with rhythm. Breathe in, count to 4. Breathe out. Don't give them a show. When it was her turn to run, she took off, not fast, not slow, just clean, form perfect, pace steady. When she passed the baton, she didn't look back. By lunch, the mood had shifted. Someone had started a group chat. She didn't know who, but her name was in it. Screenshots passed around like flyers, a photo from behind her hoodie, her sketchbook on her lap, a caption written in pink font, Franklin Hooded Crusader. Protect your edges. She saw it on someone's phone, watched as a girl zoomed in on her drawing, then snorted and passed it to a friend. Imani's stomach turned. but her face didn't change. She just picked up her tray and walked toward the courtyard. Outside, wind whipped through the leaves. The kind of breeze that makes you zip up your jacket and tuck your fingers deep. She sat alone at the far bench under the broken clock. Same spot she found yesterday. Same view of the dumpster. Same cold silence. But today, she wasn't alone for long. A shadow fell across the table. It was Chloe, and behind her, two of her friends. "Hey, Sketch Queen," Chloe said sweetly. "We wanted to see your drawings." Imani didn't answer. She opened her carton of milk, sipped once. "You don't have to be so rude," Chloe continued. "We're just curious." One of the girls reached for Imani's notebook. Imani's hand landed on it first. Calm, firm. "You don't touch my stuff," she said, voice flat. Chloe tilted her head. "Oh, you talk now." Imani stared. That stare, that flat, unblinking, unapologetic stare. It didn't scream. It didn't beg. It warned. Chloe laughed nervously. "Relax. Hood rat. It's just a joke." Imani closed her notebook and stood slowly, then laughed somewhere else. Back in class, the whispers continued. Now it was attitude. Now it was who she thinks she is. Imani didn't care. Not really, but somewhere deep. She felt it building. That quiet rage, not the kind that explodes, the kind that waits, the kind that plans, the kind that knows exactly when to speak and what to say when the time is right. She walked home that day with her hood up tighter than usual. The streetlights blinked above her like broken stars. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't tell anyone, but inside she was sharpening. Thursday arrived cold and sharp. Rain clung to the windows like sweat, and the sky wore the color of wet cement. Imani sat at the breakfast table, still in her hoodie, cereal going soggy in the bowl. She didn't eat, didn't speak. Her mom rushed around in scrubs, collecting keys, a half-eaten protein bar in her hand. "Anything going on at school?" she asked without looking. Imani shook her head. Same lie, different day. When the door closed and her mother's footsteps faded, Imani finally exhaled. She pulled her sketchbook from her bag and flipped to a blank page. No drawings today, just words, scrawled fast and tight. "They laugh now, but they'll see." She tore the page out, folded it into fourths, and shoved it in her back pocket. By second period, the whispers had grown teeth. Not just jokes now, assumptions. She probably sells edibles, thinks she's in a gang. She don't even smile, must be plotting something. The thing about rumors, they don't need roots to grow, just air. And Chloe made sure there was plenty of that. She had her army, 3 girls with straight teeth and phone filters, always 2 steps behind her, nodding like backup singers. They didn't need to say much. Chloe did all the work, and today, she was in rare form. It happened in 6th period, art class. The room smelled like glue sticks and acrylic paint. Imani had her sketchbook open, charcoal smeared across her fingertips, eyes locked on the page. She didn't hear them come up behind her, didn't see the scissors until they were already too close. Chloe's voice sang behind her. "Too sweet. You missed picture day? Don't worry, we'll help with the makeover." Snip. A sharp tug. Silence. Then laughter. Imani reached up slow, disbelieving, and touched the side of her head. Hair. Gone. Not much. Just enough. Enough to send a message. Enough to humiliate. She turned slowly in her seat. Chloe was grinning, holding the scissors like a trophy. "It's just hair," she said, loud enough for the class. Right. Some students gasped. Some laughed. One kid recorded it on his phone. The teacher froze, eyes wide, didn't say a word. Imani stood up, not fast, not loud, just stood. She looked at Chloe and smiled. Not a happy smile, not even a sad one. A knowing smile, the kind that says, "You just made the worst mistake of your life." Chloe blinked, confused. Imani leaned close and whispered, voice like stone, "You're gonna wish you hadn't touched me." She walked out of class, didn't ask, didn't wait, just left, through the hallway, down the back stairs, and straight out the side door. The rain had turned to mist, soft and steady. She pulled her hood tighter and walked home. Every step burned, not from pain, from clarity. She had held back, for days. Let the words slide, let the jokes fly, but they crossed the line, not with scissors, with intent. They didn't cut hair, they cut dignity. And Imani Rhodes wasn't about to let that go unanswered. That night, she stood in front of the bathroom mirror, clippers in hand. Her mom knocked once. "You okay in there?" Imani answered, "Yeah," didn't say more. She looked at the uneven edge Chloe left behind, then took the clippers and finished it. Shaved it clean. No shame, no fear, just control. When she stepped out of the bathroom, her mom stared, eyes wide, mouth open. Imani didn't flinch. "I like it better this way," she said, then went to her room. Later that night, she pulled out her phone, opened her notes app, typed one sentence. "This is the last day they'll laugh." She didn't know what she'd do next. Not yet, but it was coming, and this time she wouldn't walk away. Friday morning arrived without apology. No sunrise, just gray, no bird song, just drizzle on the pavement. Imani stood in front of Rock Hill High with her hood up, backpack slung over one shoulder, her breath rising in soft clouds. Her hair was gone, buzzed clean the night before, not as a loss, but as a declaration. She had taken what Chloe tried to steal her control and made it louder than any scream. Kids watched her as she walked through the main hallway, but not like before. Not the side eyes of curiosity, not the pity stares. This time, it was something else. Discomfort, confusion, maybe even respect. She didn't smile, didn't blink. She just walked like nothing had happened, like she hadn't had scissors pressed to her scalp by a laughing white girl 24 hours ago. Because that's what they didn't understand. Imani wasn't trying to win their approval. She was just done being their amusement. First period was social studies. The topic, civil disobedience. Irony served warm. Mr. Powell clicked through slides about Rosa Parks in the Greensboro sit-ins. He droned on. Words like nonviolent resistance bouncing off the whiteboard like water on glass. Imani sat in the back, her notebook open, pen in hand. She wasn't taking notes. She was writing a list, not of names, of boundaries. Don't speak for me. Don't touch me. Don't tell me to take a joke. Don't expect silence to mean weakness. She underlined the last one twice. By third period, the whispers returned, but they were different now. She shaved her whole head. Maybe she's, like, trying to make a statement. I heard she's in some protest group. People didn't know what to make of her anymore. And for the first time, that worked in her favor. Because fear doesn't start with fists. It starts with unpredictability. And Imani had become unreadable. In the cafeteria, Chloe sat at her usual table, surrounded by her backup singers, sipping from a venti iced caramel whatever and pretending not to see Imani. But she saw her. They all did. Imani didn't sit. She walked past every table, let her presence speak. Her hoodie was still up, but now it looked different. Before, it was armor. Now it looked like a uniform and silence. It wasn't avoidance anymore. It was control. Later, in sixth period art, the same classroom where everything exploded the day before, she walked in first, took the same seat, opened her new sketchbook. The old one was gone, left it on the bench outside the school that morning. face up on purpose, open to the page where she had drawn Chloe holding the scissors with her own face melting like a mask. Someone would find it. Someone would take a picture. Someone would post it. She didn't need to. She just needed it to travel. Art moves faster than fists, and hers was already moving. As the bell rang and students filed in, Chloe hesitated at the door, saw Imani already seated, eyes calm, hands busy. She stepped inside, slower than usual. No greeting, no performance, just a glance, a quick one, and Imani caught it. Didn't react, didn't gloat, just held it, long enough to make Chloe look away first. That was the first win, small, invisible to others, but Imani felt it, felt the shift, like gravity bending in her favor. In the locker room after PE, a girl named Tasha, quiet, wore headphones like armor, slid onto the bench next to her. "You good?" she asked. Imani nodded. Tasha tapped her own buzzed head under her durag. "They tried that with me in 8th grade. Didn't work out for them either." Imani blinked. Then, for the first time all week, she smiled. Not big, just enough. The kind of smile that says, "I'm not alone. I'm not crazy. I'm not the first, and I won't be the last." That night, she pulled out her phone, checked Instagram. Someone had posted the sketchbook page, already had 37 comments. "Yo, who drew this? She savage for real." Chloe about to go quiet for a while. Imani didn't like the post, didn't repost it. She just turned off the phone, laid back, and closed her eyes. Tomorrow was a new day, and now she wasn't walking in with fear. She was walking in with purpose, because the first strike wasn't Chloe's scissors. The first strike was silence. And now that silence was hers, by Monday, things had changed. Not dramatically, not loudly, but enough. There was a new tension in the halls of Rock Hill High, like a hallway where the lights flicker. Even when no one says anything, something unseen had shifted. Imani didn't walk faster, didn't walk taller. She just walked the same way she always had, like a shadow moving between the cracks. Only now, the shadows were watching her. The sketch of Chloe, the one she left behind, had gone viral inside the school. No names, no caption, but everyone knew. It wasn't just the image, it was the tone of it. Chloe's exaggerated smirk, the scissors in her hand, melting like wax. The background was full of blurred faces, the students recording, a teacher turning away, the clock reading 2:36 p.m. It wasn't a sketch, it was a statement, and Rock Hill High had received it loud and clear. In 4th period, Miss Jensen passed back essay drafts. Imani's paper had a red A at the top, circled twice, but that wasn't what caught her eye. There was a sticky note on the back. "You've got a strong voice. Imani, you should use it more often." Jay. She didn't smile, not out of ungratefulness, but because she already knew. Her voice was strong. She had just learned to weaponize it without saying a word. Across the room, Chloe sat stiffly, not her usual posture, the half lean, the confident slump, the show-off laugh. Now, she was quiet, rigid. Imani glanced over once, caught her watching, held the gaze, didn't break it, and Chloe. She blinked first, again. At lunch, the tables had rearranged themselves. Not physically, socially. Chloe's crowd had thinned. 2 of her girls sat at a different table now, whispering behind phone screens. Another scrolled furiously, eyes darting like she was afraid to be tagged. Meanwhile, Imani sat alone, by choice. But this time, people didn't avoid her out of awkwardness. They avoided her out of uncertainty, and that was power. When she stood to throw away her tray, a boy named Marcus passed by and nodded. Nothing more, just a nod. But it was the first respectful gesture she'd seen since her first day. It wasn't flirtation, it wasn't sympathy, it was acknowledgement. Like, "I see you." And sometimes That's all it takes. In sixth period, Miss Harrow started class with a prompt on the board. Write about a time you were misunderstood. Imani stared at it for a while, then slowly pulled out her pen and wrote, I was never misunderstood. They understood me just fine. They just wanted me small. The words flowed, tight and controlled. They called it a joke. But what they wanted was silence. They took hair, hoping I'd unravel. Instead, I sharpened. She filled half the page, didn't stop until the bell rang. After school, Imani waited for the building to clear out. She moved through the empty halls with her hood down for once, her buzzed head glowing under the flickering fluorescence. She stopped outside the art room, slipped a sealed manila envelope under the door. Inside 10 sketches, each one different, each one drawn in charcoal, each one a mirror of what no one dared to say out loud. A student holding their tears behind a phone screen, a teacher looking away as cruelty unfolded. A hallway full of lockers, each with a mirror instead of a number. And finally, a girl in a hoodie standing in a storm of scissors, but untouched. On the back of the envelope for the next student who needs to feel seen, no name, no signature, but Ms. Harrow would know who it came from, and so would anyone who looked closely. That night, Imani sat at her bedroom window, listening to the quiet hum of the city outside. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from a number she didn't have saved. Your drawing. That was you. Right, I just want to say thank you. I didn't know how to say it out loud, but I get it now. Imani didn't reply. She just stared at the message for a while, then locked her phone and set it face down on the desk. Outside, a car alarm chirped. Inside, she exhaled. Because the first blow had been theirs, but the first real strike, it belonged to her. And it was only the beginning. Tuesday started strange. It wasn't the weather, though. The sky was cracked with streaks of orange and gray, a warning that fall was coming in fast. It wasn't the bell schedule, though. It rang late, causing everyone to shuffle into first period a few minutes off rhythm. It was the way people looked at Imani, not just once or twice, over and over. Some with narrowed eyes, some with furrowed brows, a few with curiosity, like they were trying to fit her into a story they hadn't fully heard but were already invested in. Whispers chased her down every hallway. The sketch had done its job. Now, people weren't asking if Chloe had gone too far. They were asking why she had done it at all, and why no one stopped her. That question, the one no one had dared ask out loud, was starting to hum beneath the surface. And Chloe, she felt it. She felt it every time a classmate chose the seat next to her, then changed their mind. Every time someone scrolled through their phone and smirked in her direction. Every time a teacher said her name with just a little less patience than usual. Imani didn't need to confront her. She had already pulled the fire alarm on Chloe's perfect little kingdom, and now it was smoldering on its own. Third period was English. Ms. Alvarez was assigning group projects literature and social commentary. The groups were posted on the board. 3 names per team. Imani scanned the list, uninterested until her eyes stopped on one line. Group 5, Imani Rhodes. Chloe Vickers. Drew Kent silence, then heat, in her chest, behind her ears. She didn't react outwardly, not in front of the others, but inside a storm cracked open. She walked slowly to her desk, took her seat, and pulled her notebook from her bag. Chloe arrived moments later, paused when she saw the group list, blinking fast, biting the edge of her lip. Drew, a quiet boy who rarely talked above a mumble, sat between them like a sacrificial offering. Miss Alvarez explained the assignment. Choose a modern social issue, pair it with a literary theme, and build a short presentation by the end of the week. Easy enough for most groups, but not for theirs. Later that day, during the work session, Imani didn't say much. She didn't have to. Her silence said more than any insult ever could. Chloe tried to act normal, flipping pages in the packet, tapping her pen, clearing her throat every few minutes like her voice had been waiting for permission. So, um, Chloe began, eyes flicking up to meet Imani's for a second before darting away. I was thinking we could do ours on, like, power dynamics or something. Drew nodded slowly. Like, oppression, Chloe brightened. Yeah, exactly. That kind of stuff. Imani raised an eyebrow. That kind of stuff. Chloe stammered. I mean, you know, what we're supposed to do, social issues. Imani leaned back in her seat, arms crossed. What would you know about oppression? She asked. Not angry, not loud, just real. Chloe froze. For a second, the whole classroom seemed to pause. Even Ms. Alvarez looked up from her desk. Drew stayed silent. Chloe swallowed. I didn't mean anything by it, she said softly. Imani nodded slowly. That's the problem, she replied. After class, Chloe caught up with Imani in the hallway. Wait, Imani stopped, turned. No expression. I just, Chloe struggled to find the words. I know I messed up. I didn't mean for it to go like that. I didn't think exactly. Imani interrupted. You didn't think. Chloe's mouth opened, then closed again. Imani stepped closer, not threatening, just present. Do you know what it feels like to have someone cut a part of you and laugh like it's funny Chloe didn't answer? Imani nodded again. I do. And with that, she walked away. By the end of the day, word had spread that they were in a group, that Imani had said something, that Chloe hadn't clapped back. The rumors spun fast, none fully accurate, but all painting a picture that was starting to feel familiar. Chloe Vickers wasn't untouchable anymore. In Imani Rhodes, she wasn't invisible, not even close. She was quiet, yes, but now she was known. And in Rock Hill High, that kind of shift didn't go unnoticed. That night, she opened her sketchbook again. She drew a chessboard, Chloe's queen tipping over, a hoodie-covered rook rising on the other side. She smiled, because power wasn't just about how loud you could be, it was about knowing when to move. And Imani. She had just taken the first piece. Wednesday morning felt colder than usual, not because of the weather, though autumn had clearly taken the air hostage, but because of what was coming, what everyone seemed to know, except Imani. She noticed it as soon as she stepped through the front entrance. The silence, the way conversations stopped mid-sentence when she walked by, the way students turned quickly, like they were afraid to make eye contact or worse, desperate not to be caught looking too long. It wasn't fear. Not yet. It was anticipation. Imani had learned to read energy. This wasn't curiosity. This was a setup. It happened at lunch, right when the cafeteria was at its loudest. She walked in like she always did, quiet, hoodie up, tray in hand. Her usual corner table was empty, but the eyes followed her there, and just as she sat down, it started. A ringtone, loud, too loud. Someone had connected their phone to the cafeteria speaker system through the Bluetooth meant for morning announcements. Then a voice distorted, edited, played over the speakers. Welcome to Rock Hill High, where hoodies hide heads and heads hide shame. Laughter burst across the room. It wasn't random. It was planned, staged. The audio kept playing. Let's give a round of applause for the quiet queen of South Franklin, always watching, always sketching, always pretending she's above us. Students turned toward her table, some laughing, others recording. One boy actually clapped. Then, the worst part, a slideshow began on the flat-screen monitors in the cafeteria, images of Imani, from behind, from the hallway, from art class, her sketchbook open, face half hidden. Someone had taken screenshots from the group project platform and edited them into fake diary entries. Today I stared at Chloe again. I wish I was her. Sometimes I wish I was white just so people would shut up. I shaved my head so people would stop expecting anything from me. Lies. Cruel. Strategic lies. Imani froze, not from fear, from sheer disbelief. She didn't stand, didn't scream, didn't cry. She just sat there. As the cafeteria burned with laughter, somewhere, a teacher was supposed to stop it. Someone was supposed to intervene. But nobody moved. Not the vice principal by the vending machine, not the hall monitor by the door, not even Miss Alvarez, who was walking through with a lunch tray of her own. They all saw, they all knew, but they didn't act. Imani stood up slowly, lifted her tray, carried it to the trash can, dropped it in without a word. She walked toward the hallway, the laughter still ringing in her ears. Someone tried to trip her as she passed. Her foot caught the edge of a backpack, but she didn't stumble. She didn't give them that satisfaction. She just kept walking, out the door, down the hall, through the stairwell, and into the girls' bathroom on the second floor. Inside, she leaned against the sink, finally breathed, not shaky, not broken, just furious. Her reflection stared back at her buzzed hair, hoodie slightly damp from sweat, eyes sharp as glass. They tried to break her in public, tried to strip her down in front of everyone, and it almost worked. Almost. But she wasn't going to give them an ending. Not yet. 10 minutes later, she walked back into the cafeteria. The slideshow was gone. The Bluetooth had been cut. Everyone was acting normal again. But when she walked in, they noticed she didn't look angry, didn't look defeated. She looked ready, like a storm no one saw coming. Chloe was at her usual table, surrounded, but not protected. Imani walked past her close enough for Chloe to smell the citrus oil in her hoodie. She didn't stop, didn't speak. But Chloe turned in her seat and watched her until she disappeared through the next hallway, hands shaking, mouth dry, because Chloe had finally realized something. Imani didn't need to scream. Her silence was already louder than anything they'd broadcast. In the library, Imani sat alone at a computer, opened a blank document, typed one word, exhibit, then began uploading screenshots of her own, real ones, time-stamped, unedited. She didn't post them yet, not because she was scared, but because she wanted to wait for the perfect moment. She had learned from them. And now it was her turn to plan the show. That night, Rock Hill High's group chats were on fire. The audio clip from lunch had been reposted 5 different times. The fake diary screenshots were all over Snap Stories. Some people laughed, some cringed, and some just watched silent spectators to a public lynching in digital form. But what most people missed was that Imani never posted a single word. No denial, no defense, nothing. Just silence, and that silence. It scared them more than rage ever could. By the time Thursday morning rolled around, the air had changed again. Colder, denser. Imani moved through the front doors like she always did, hoodie up, steps light. But now the hallway parted for her, not from respect, from confusion, from fear. Because when someone gets humiliated like that and doesn't break, people start to wonder what they're holding back. First period. Ms. Alvarez's English class. The group project presentations were scheduled to begin next week. Chloe sat 2 rows away, fidgeting with her pen, pretending to be absorbed in her notes. But Imani felt her eyes, felt the way Chloe's breathing shifted every time she moved. Imani didn't look at her, didn't need to. She was building something, and Chloe could feel it coming. By lunch, a new post had hit the student forum, anonymous, but clean, precise, a digital flyer titled The Real Rock Hill, an exhibition of silence, systems, and scissors, date Friday, time 3:30 p.m. Location art room. No one knew who posted it, but everyone had a guess. That afternoon, Imani sat in the library, headphones in but no music playing. She was watching, listening, tracking reactions. Some students were already whispering, "What's this exhibition thing? Is it about her?" Yo, if it is, I'm not missing it. Even the teachers had started murmuring in the lounge. She'd done it. She'd flipped the lens. Now they were the audience. And she was the author. At 2:15, Chloe finally cracked. It happened in the girls' locker room. A few students were talking in hushed tones about the flyer, and one of them said the word scissors. Chloe spun around. That's not funny. The girls looked up. We didn't say it was. You don't know the full story. Chloe snapped. We know what we saw. One girl said, voice flat. Chloe's hands were shaking now. She's turning everyone against me. No. Another girl replied, standing up. You did that part yourself. Meanwhile, Imani was already printing the final panels. 7 sketches, 6 quotes, and 1 confession, not hers, Chloe's. A voice memo Chloe had sent weeks ago in a private group chat, laughing, mocking, bragging. Y'all, I really cut her hair I had to the way she was acting. All silent like she was better than us. Please. Imani hadn't posted it. She hadn't shared it. She'd saved it. For Friday, for the exhibit. In 7th period, Miss Harrow, the art teacher, pulled Imani aside. I assume this is your event? Imani didn't deny it. Miss Harrow studied her. You know this could cause waves? Imani met her eyes. They made waves. I'm just showing people what's under the surface. The teacher nodded slowly. You'll need permission to use the projector. I'll bring my own. You'll need a staff sponsor. You're looking at her. That made Ms. Harrow pause. Then she smiled, just barely. I'll make sure the room is open at 3:15. After school, Chloe stood in the parking lot, watching kids pass flyers, digital ones now, shared via airdrop and reposted on story after story. She tried to laugh it off, tried to tell herself it would blow over. But deep down, she knew it wouldn't. Because Imani hadn't just survived. She had rewritten the ending. That night, Imani sat at her desk under a flickering ceiling light, assembling her presentation. It wasn't flashy, no filters, no memes, just truths. Hard, unedited, uncomfortable, each image paired with a caption, each word deliberate. One frame read, when they laughed. I listened. When they posted. I watched. Now it's my turn. And on the final slide, the audio, the memo, Chloe's voice, raw, exposed. She would play it once, then walk away. Let them decide what kind of school they wanted to be. Imani closed her laptop, exhaled, and leaned back. Tomorrow wasn't revenge. It was revelation, and it was almost time. Friday, 3:27 p.m. The hallway outside art room, B buzzed like a live wire. Students leaned against lockers, eyes flicking from phone screens to the classroom door. Some came for drama, some came for answers, but all of them came for one reason, Imani. Inside, the lights were low, projector already humming. Imani stood by the front table, not pacing, not checking her slides, just still. Her buzzed head caught the light, skin smooth, face unreadable. She didn't wear her hoodie today. She didn't need it. The armor had become unnecessary. What she was about to do couldn't be hidden. It had to be seen. By 3:31, every seat was filled. More students lined the back wall, elbows brushing shoulders, eyes locked on the front. A couple teachers stood in the corners, silent observers to whatever was about to unfold. Chloe walked in last, not smiling, not speaking. She wore oversized sunglasses indoors and stood near the exit like she was halfway out already. No one greeted her. No one even looked her way. The attention wasn't on her anymore. It belonged to Imani. And when Imani stepped forward, the room fell to a hush so thick you could feel your pulse in your ears. She didn't introduce herself. She didn't explain. She clicked the remote, slide 1, a charcoal sketch of school lockers, but instead of numbers, each locker door was open like a mouth. mouths whispering. Out of them floated words. She doesn't smile. She thinks she's too good. She's from the hood. Small gasps, a few uncomfortable shifts in chairs. Imani stood still. Slide 2, a pair of scissors, drawn to look like a viper with blades instead of fangs, captioned in small, scratched handwriting. This is how they cut more than hair. Slide 3, the viral sketch. Chloe, grinning, holding scissors, her face melting down like candle wax. Around her cell phones raised like weapons. One teacher in the back coughed. Another crossed their arms. Everyone recognized the image. Imani moved to slide 4, a self-portrait. She sat alone at a cafeteria table. The background showed dozens of other students, but all of them blurred. Faceless. Imani was the only one in detail. Caption, I wasn't invisible. You just didn't want to look. Slide 5. A new sketch. The girls' locker room, scissors on the bench, a hoodie hanging from a hook slashed down the back. Caption, this is the part you didn't see. Slide 6. No drawing, just text. White on black. Now listen. Imani pressed play. Chloe's voice echoed through the room, shrill, laughing, raw. Y'all, I really cut her hair, had to the way she was acting. All quiet like she was royalty or something. She should be thanking me. Laughter followed, more voices egging her on. The sound clipped, ended. Silence returned heavy, suffocating. Imani looked out over the crowd. Some kids had their hands over their mouths. A few stared straight at Chloe. One whispered. That was her. Chloe didn't move. Her arms were crossed, but her hands shaking. Imani stepped forward, finally spoke. I didn't come here for revenge. I came here because I'm tired of the silence protecting the wrong people. She scanned the room, eyes steady. You didn't need to say anything to be part of it. You just needed to laugh, or look away, or pretend it wasn't your problem. A long pause. Then I'm not asking for an apology. I'm not asking for a spotlight. I'm not asking for you to like me. She held up her sketchbook. I just wanted you to see me. And now you do. She turned, unplugged the projector, gathered her things, and walked out just like that. No mic drop, no applause, no breakdown, just presence and power. In the room behind her, the silence remained. Not the stunned kind, the processing kind, like a mirror had been held up and no one liked what they saw. Even Chloe, especially Chloe. Outside, the wind whipped through the courtyard. Leaves spiraled down in wide arcs, covering the steps like confetti no one threw. Imani walked alone, but not unseen and not forgotten. She had turned her humiliation into art, turned her silence into volume, turned their cruelty into evidence. And for the first time all semester, Rock Hill High was finally listening. Monday morning arrived like a bruised deep purple in the sky, heavy in the air. Rock Hill High looked the same brick walls, same gold-lettered banners, same hallway chatter echoing through polished floors. But something underneath had changed. Not everyone saw it. Not everyone wanted to. But Imani felt it in the way teachers paused when she entered a room, in the way some kids stepped aside without looking her in the eye, in the way Chloe didn't show up. She thought the storm had passed, that the truth was out, that the silence had done its job. But what she didn't know, the real damage hadn't begun. Not yet. Third period, social studies. Mr. Powell was mid-lecture on the Bill of Rights, ironic, given what was about to happen when the classroom door opened. Two assistant principals stood in the doorway. Imani Rhodes, every head turned. Mr. Powell hesitated. She's in the middle of, it's important. One of them said. Imani stood slowly. She didn't ask why, didn't need to. She'd seen this movie before, just never thought she'd be the main character. As she walked out, phones lit up across the room, whispers swirled. Someone muttered, they're going to expel her. Another bet Chloe's behind this. No one said anything to her face. They never did. They didn't take her to the main office. They took her to conference room C. That's when she knew this wasn't about discipline. It was about control. Inside sat Principal Harmon, a district official named Ms. Keller, and a man in a navy blue blazer who didn't introduce himself. The air smelled like paper and stale coffee. The vibe interrogation, not conversation. Imani sat down, hands in her lap, expression unreadable. Imani. Miss Keller began, voice clipped and careful. We received a report regarding your recent actions, specifically the presentation held last Friday afternoon. Imani tilted her head slightly. Which part, Mies? Keller blinked. All of it. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed screenshots of her drawings, the flyer, even private messages she'd sent to group members during the project. This came from an anonymous tip submitted through our digital safety system. Ms. Amar, Keller continued. There are concerns about how your work may be perceived, about the atmosphere you're creating. Imani raised an eyebrow. You mean the one where people are finally telling the truth? The man in the blazer leaned forward. We understand this is emotional for you, but some of the material could be interpreted as targeted harassment, provoking conflict. Imani's voice stayed calm. I didn't name anyone. Principal Harmon cleared his throat. Intent doesn't always equal impact. Miss Rhodes? Imani leaned back. There it was, the phrase they always used when a black kid spoke too clearly, too confidently. Intent doesn't equal impact. What they really meant. Sit down before you make the room uncomfortable. We'd like you to suspend your involvement in the Student Arts Coalition until we review this further. Keller added, and, Harmon interjected, we're pausing your participation in next month's Youth Leadership Forum. Temporarily. Imani blinked. I earned those spots. It's not punishment. Keller assured her. It's precaution. But Imani knew better. Precaution was just punishment without the paperwork. When she returned to class, the day felt different. The walls felt closer. The whispers felt louder. Someone had sent that tip. Someone wanted her silenced. But this wasn't just about Chloe anymore. This was bigger. This was the system pushing back. The moment she stopped being the quiet girl in the hoodie and started being a voice people listened to, she became a problem. And Rock Hill didn't like problems it couldn't predict. At lunch, she sat under the bleachers, same spot she always went when the cafeteria felt too crowded, too fake. She pulled out her notebook, didn't draw, didn't write, just stared at the blank page until a voice broke the silence. You okay? It was Miles' junior year. One of the only kids who ever stood up during discussions, even when it made things awkward. Imani shrugged. I'm used to it. That doesn't mean it's okay. He sat beside her, legs crossed. I saw the post and heard what they said. It was garbage. She didn't respond. He glanced at her. You know it was Chloe. Right, the tip. She's trying to make you the villain. Imani exhaled slowly. Doesn't matter who pressed the button. The system was waiting for an excuse. Miles nodded, then pulled something from his pocket, a flash drive. I saved the original audio, all of it, including the part where she bragged about editing the screenshots. Imani looked at him, eyes sharp. You kept it. Someone had to. She took the flash drive, didn't say thank you, didn't need to. He already knew, because now the line hadn't just been crossed, it had been erased, and she was about to redraw it with receipts. That night, the house was silent, too silent. Even the hum of the refrigerator felt like noise. Even the wind against the windows felt loud. Imani sat on the floor of her bedroom, her laptop open, the flash drive plugged in like a detonator. She played the recording, not the one everyone had already heard, the one Miles gave her, raw, uncut, truth. Chloe's voice, laughing. I didn't even edit that much, just tweaked it, made it look like she wanted the attention, And these people, please, they believe anything that sounds tragic. More laughter, another girl's voice. You're savage. Then Chloe again. She wants to act like some kind of activist. Fine. Let's see how she likes being the headline. The audio ended. Imani sat still. She didn't flinch, didn't cry, just copied the file to her laptop, backed it up twice. Then she opened a new folder and named it Exhibit B when they lie loudly. The next morning, she didn't wear black, didn't wear gray. She wore a bright red hoodie. It was the only one she owned that had color. She never wore it before. Today, she wanted to be seen, fully. She walked through the main hallway like it belonged to her, because in some ways, now it did. First period. Miss Alvarez looked up when Imani entered. There was a long pause. Then the teacher said nothing, just gave a short nod. Not approval, not pity, just recognition. Imani sat down, opened her notebook, and waited. Not for the lesson, for the moment. By a third period, the whispers had shifted. Kids weren't talking about if Chloe was behind the false report anymore. They were talking about what was coming next. Someone had seen Imani in the library, scanning printed documents. Someone else said she'd reserved a media room. Rumors spread like gasoline. Imani didn't post anything, didn't comment. She didn't need to, because sometimes the best way to make noise is to say nothing at all. At lunch, Riley finally found her. She'd been trying all week, but Imani had gone dark. No art room, no bleachers, no library, just gone. But today, she was there, back in the corner of the courtyard, sitting alone at the rusted-out bench with her tray untouched. Riley dropped her bag beside her. Didn't ask to sit. Word is, Riley said, you're about to make the school explode. Imani didn't look up. She just said, it's not about burning anything down. Riley raised an eyebrow. Really, Imani turned to her. It's about showing everyone who's really holding the matches. That afternoon, she walked into the student services office and asked to speak to Mr. Lennox, the school's student equity liaison. He was surprised. He hadn't seen her since the exhibition. He offered her a seat. She didn't take it. I need help, she said, with what he asked. Cautious with making this official, she handed him a USB stick and a printed timeline. Everything's in here. The original audio, the altered screenshots. The timeline from the fake tip to the day I was pulled from class. I want it logged. Lennox took the drive. This is a lot. She nodded. And it's real. He sat back, studying her. You know this puts pressure on people above me. Good. He almost smiled. Almost. Then said, you want a formal hearing? No, she replied. I want a permanent record. I want this to follow her like it followed me. Lennox nodded slowly. I'll start the process. Imani turned to leave, but paused. Also, she said, I want to address the board. Lennox blinked. The district board? Yes. They won't make it easy. Imani looked over her shoulder. I don't do easy. That evening, Chloe sat in her room refreshing her socials. Her followers were down 117 since last week. One of her friends from cheer hadn't replied to her texts in 2 days. She scrolled through DMs, most quiet, some hostile, one that simply said, she's coming. Her fingers tightened on the phone. She went to delete the fake screenshots from her photo archive, but stopped because they were gone, already deleted. Not by her. Her lips parted slightly. And for the first time, she felt it. Not guilt, not regret, just fear. And fear was exactly what Imani needed her to feel. Because once the system turns against the wrong person, it doesn't apologize. It hides. It erases. But this time, Imani had receipts, and she was about to walk them through the front door. By Friday morning, the air at Rock Hill High was no longer tense. It was charged. Like the sky before a storm. Like everyone knew lightning was coming, but couldn't agree where it would land. Imani stepped onto campus like she had all week head high. Red hoodie zipped halfway, backpack over one shoulder. Except this time, she wasn't walking alone. Miles was at her side. Riley was a few steps behind. And one by one, other students joined. Not loudly, not marching, just walking. It wasn't a protest, not yet, but it was a message. People were watching. At 10:45 a.m., just after second period, an announcement echoed through the intercom. Imani Rhodes, please report to the main office. This time, it wasn't a summons. It was an invitation. She looked at Miles. He nodded. Go remind them who they're talking to. The main office was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that meant lawyers had been consulted. Principal Harmon sat at the conference table. Ms. Keller from the district was there too. Again, next to them, a school board liaison. A woman in a navy suit with a clipboard and a politically neutral smile. Imani sat across from them. No fear in her eyes, no shake in her hands, just presence. Imani. Harmon began, voice overly polite. Thank you for coming. We understand you submitted a formal request to address the district board next week. She nodded once. Correct. Miss. Keller leaned in. Before we get there, we'd like to discuss some possible resolutions. Quiet ones. Imani tilted her head. Quiet, like the way you handled the false report. No one responded. She opened her folder, pulled out a printed transcript of the audio Miles had given her. I have a timeline. Proof that Chloe Vickers fabricated evidence. Proof that someone from staff leaked internal screenshots to her friends. Proof that you acted on an anonymous tip without verifying it. And suspended me from my student council position. The room stiffened. I'm not here to cause trouble. She continued. I'm here to end it. The school board liaison cleared her throat. Imani, if this becomes public, it could damage the district. Good, Imani said, because it damaged me first. They offered her reinstatement. They offered to fast-track her name onto the youth forum list again. They even offered a public apology vague, pre-written, and full of legal padding. She listened, then pushed the apology paper back. I'll write my own. Harmon frowned. Imani, let's be reasonable. No, she interrupted. Let's be real. You watched this school protect the girl who cut my hair, doctored my words, and humiliated me. You ignored it until I drew it, until I recorded it, until I made you look. Ms. Keller rubbed her temples. Imani stood up. You don't get to tell me how to survive this. She picked up her folder. I'll see you at the board meeting. By noon, the school was humming again, but this time, with her name in the center, word had spread. Imani versus the board. Evidence on deck. No more hiding. Even teachers walked more carefully now. Not out of guilt, out of awareness. They had underestimated the quiet girl in the hoodie, and now they were catching up. In sixth period, Mr. Alvarez stopped Imani after class. I heard what you're doing, she said, voice low. Imani paused. Are you here to warn me? Alvarez shook her head. No, I'm here to say, do it right, not for revenge, for the ones coming after you. Imani didn't reply. She didn't have to. Her silence was no longer survival. It was strategy. That night, she sat at her kitchen table with her mother, papers spread out, outlines sketched, flash drive ready, notebook pages flipped and flagged. Her mom poured a cup of tea, eyes tired but proud. I didn't think this place would break you, she said, but I didn't think you'd break them either. Imani stared at her notes. They're not broken, not yet, but they're about to learn what happens when the system underestimates the girl it tried to silence. At 11:47 p.m., she emailed her final board statement draft to Mr. Lennox. Subject line, ready to speak. She attached the audio, the timeline, the sketch panels, everything. Then she powered off her laptop, laid back on her bed, hands folded, eyes open, not restless, not afraid, just waiting. Because when they crossed the line, they thought she'd disappear. Instead, she drew another one and dared them to cross that. There are some stories you keep locked in your chest, stories that feel too heavy to speak, too sharp to hand over to anyone who hasn't earned them. Imani had one of those stories, and it began long before the hoodie, before Rock Hill High, before Chloe and the scissors and the fake screenshots. It began with her father, not the one who left, not the one on the birth certificate, the one who raised her, the one who didn't smile often, but didn't need to, the one who spoke like every word had already been weighed and measured. Andre Rhodes. Andre never liked schools like Rock Hill. He called them factories for fake futures, or said they were designed to polish kids into acceptable citizens as long as those kids knew how to shut up and smile. He'd been through systems like that before, and he'd broken every single one of them. 12 years in the Marines, 8 more in federal cybersecurity. Now he ran a private risk firm, the kind of job that required a badge most people had never heard of, and a clearance level that didn't show up on paper. But to Imani, he was just dad, the one who made pancakes every other Sunday, the one who taught her to read license plates like codes, the one who told her, "You don't always have to speak to be dangerous." He hadn't been around much during the school chaos, traveling, contracts, always working, but when the board letter came in the mail, the one inviting Imani to speak at the upcoming hearing, Andre was already home, waiting. She walked through the front door, tired and quiet, expecting an empty kitchen. Instead, he was there, at the table, reading the letter. He looked up once, didn't smile, didn't ask why she didn't tell him sooner. He just said, "They made you fight this alone?" Imani dropped her bag, nodded, "Until I couldn't anymore." Andre folded the letter once, set it beside his coffee mug, then said, "Okay, let's get ready." That weekend, they sat together at the dining room table. No distractions, no TV, no music, just strategy, like two generals reviewing a battlefield. Imani had the evidence, the voice memos, the fake screenshots, the timeline. Andre had the language, the experience, the understanding of how systems hide behind rules and forms. Don't just tell them what happened, he said, tell them what it means, what it cost, what it reveals. He showed her how to structure impact statements, how to phrase things so that board members couldn't dismiss it as teen emotion, how to hold eye contact just long enough to make them uncomfortable but not defensive. And most importantly, when you speak, don't beg them to believe you, he told her. Show them it doesn't matter if they do. The truth will live without their permission. On Sunday night, they rehearsed her speech. Andre sat across from her in the living room, arms crossed, silent. She read the entire statement, voice steady, no breaks. When she finished, he didn't clap, didn't smile. He just nodded. "You're ready." Then he stood, picked up his jacket. "Where are you going?" Imani asked. "Board meetings are public," he said, reaching for his keys. "I'm sitting in the front row." Monday came fast. The school board room was smaller than she expected. Wood-paneled walls, a dusty American flag in the corner, rows of folding chairs filled with district staff, community members, and more than a few Rock Hill teachers who just happened to stop by. And in the middle of it all, Imani sat red hoodie on, folder in hand. Her name was called. She stood, walked to the podium. Behind her, Andre crossed his arms and leaned forward slightly, not to intimidate, just to remind the room she wasn't alone anymore. Imani cleared her throat, and for the first time, her voice didn't tremble. "My name is Imani Rhodes. I'm a student at Rock Hill High. You may know me from the slideshow I created last month, or the anonymous report that followed. But before I'm any of those things, I'm a person. And I've been listening to this district's silence since the day I walked through its front doors. She paused. Let the quiet settle. I was humiliated, manipulated, and falsely accused. But I am not here to ask for pity. I am here to document the process by which you let it happen. And then she laid it out, slide by slide, screenshot by screenshot, quote by quote, not just what Chloe did, but how the school reacted, how they treated her voice like a threat, how they punished her for making people uncomfortable, how they erased her work before they even understood it. And when she was done, she closed the folder, looked up. I'm not the only one. I might be the first to stand here, but I'm not the first to be silenced. I'm not the last either. Unless something changes. She stepped back. Andre nodded. The board sat stiff, tight smiles, tapping pens, avoiding her eyes. Because now the shadow wasn't silent anymore. It had a name. It had receipts. And it had backup. The moment Imani stepped away from the podium, the air in the boardroom shifted. Not with noise, but with weight. She didn't drop the mic, she placed it. With precision. The kind of truth she spoke didn't echo. It lingered, like smoke after a fire, behind her. Andre remained seated in the front row, still, expression unreadable. But every person on that board table knew one thing without being told. They had underestimated the wrong family. Miss Phelps, the board chair, adjusted her glasses and cleared her throat. Thank you. Miss Rhodes, she said, her voice careful, each word tiptoeing over what had just been exposed. We appreciate your courage and preparation. Courage. Imani didn't react, because she didn't come for their compliments. She came for accountability, and they weren't ready for it. One board member, Mr. Ellis, leaned toward his mic, a retired superintendent, hair white, tie tighter than necessary. Ms. Rhodes, for the record, can you confirm whether any of this material was edited or selectively presented? Andre shifted in his seat. Imani didn't even blink. No edits, no filters, all original timestamps, verified by your own district platform's metadata. Ellis nodded slowly, then looked away. That was the thing about facts. They didn't flinch, even when you did. After the meeting, Imani walked down the hallway with Andre beside her. He didn't say anything right away, didn't need to. His presence was enough, like a lighthouse you never had to question. When they reached the parking lot, she finally asked, "Do you think they'll actually do anything?" Andre paused beside the car, looked up at the gray clouds gathering over the school building. Systems don't shift from guilt, he said. They shift from pressure. She looked at him. What if pressure's not enough? Andre unlocked the door, placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we make it uncomfortable for them to stay the same. By the next morning, things at Rock Hill High weren't just different, they were unsettled. There's a moment in every institution where the silence cracks, and once it does, everyone starts looking around like they just woke up in the wrong room. Teachers acted more cautious. Some offered tight smiles, others avoided eye contact altogether. Principal Harmon didn't speak to Imani when he passed her in the hall, just gave a small nod, the kind that says, I see you now. I wish I didn't. But I do. Later that day, Mr. Lennox found her outside the library. He walked up quietly, holding a sealed folder. They reviewed your file, he said. The board, the superintendent, even legal counsel. Imani stared at the folder, didn't take it. Not yet. They want to offer you reinstatement, full, with written acknowledgement of missteps and a public statement from the district about digital harassment and accountability and leadership. She crossed her arms. And what about Chloe Lennox? Hesitated. She's been removed from all leadership roles. Counseling is mandatory. There's a conversation about disciplinary record annotation. Imani finally took the folder. That's a start. Lennox nodded. It's not perfect. I didn't come for perfect. She said, I came for truth. The district posted their public statement that Friday. It was polished, watered down, but still real. It acknowledged a failure to properly assess student-reported materials and the inappropriate suspension of student involvement without full investigation. Imani read it once, then closed the browser because she didn't need their apology on her wall. She already had something better, her name back. That weekend, she returned to the art room, same chair, same table, but this time, something new sat beside her, a blank canvas. She didn't sketch right away. She stared at it, let it stare back. Then slowly, she drew a girl in a hoodie standing on a cracked stage. Behind her, shadows of those who tried to silence her. In front of her, light, not a spotlight, a sunrise. Underneath, she wrote, they called it attitude. It was actually resistance. Outside, as the sun slipped between rooftops, she met Andre by the parking lot. He leaned on the hood of his truck, arms folded, watching her with a quiet pride he never said aloud. She climbed in beside him, closed the door, looked forward. No words, just peace. For the first time in a long time, Imani wasn't reacting, wasn't surviving. She was steering, Monday morning, a new week. But it didn't feel like a reset. Rock Hill High had changed. Not flipped upside down, not revolutionized, but cracked enough to let light through. And Imani walked in like she belonged. Not because they gave her permission, but because she had taken it back. The red hoodie stayed in the closet that day. She didn't need it. She wore deep green, calm, centered, unshakable. And on her wrist, a rubber band, black, a reminder. Every time she pulled it tight, she remembered what they tried to snap inside her and failed. The first bell rang. She moved through the hallway like water through stone slow, unbothered, undeniable. Kids didn't whisper anymore. They watched, not with judgment, with memory, because they remembered the girl who stood alone, the girl who didn't fight back the way they expected, the girl who let the system come to her and win or lose. They knew she shifted something permanent. In the library, a group of underclassmen worked quietly on laptops. One girl, probably a freshman, looked up and spotted Imani walking past the window. She nudged her friend. "That's her," she whispered. "The one who did the slideshow." Her friend's eyes widened. "No way! That was her. She's not even loud." Exactly. Imani had made truth echo without raising her voice, and that terrified people more than shouting ever could. During lunch, she sat on the steps near the south building, not hiding, not isolating, just claiming space. Andre's words still rang in her head. If they won't give you space, take it. And if they ask why you're there, make them prove you don't belong. She took out her notebook, not for defense, for creation. She sketched, not pain this time, not surveillance, not systems. She sketched power, hands raised not in protest, but in offering. Voices emerging not as screams, but as roots twisting into the foundation of something unshakable. At the top of the page, she wrote, "The silence wasn't empty, it was ancestral." Sixth period, Ms. Alvarez passed back essays, a unit on personal narratives. One by one, papers landed on desks, some with red marks, some with gold stars. Imani's landed face down. She flipped it over. No grade at the top, just a note. "This is not just writing, it's witness. See me after class." After the final bell, she waited at the edge of the whiteboard. Miss Alvarez walked over slowly, holding a copy of Imani's piece. "I read this 3 times. She said, "And I still don't know how you managed to say so much, while keeping half of it inside the lines." Imani didn't answer. Ms. Alvarez continued, "I want to submit this to the state narrative competition, and I want you to read it out loud At the student assembly next month, Imani blinked. A pause. Then out loud, Ms. Alvarez nodded. You don't have to. But if you can, oh, it could change more than just a room. Imani looked down at the paper, then looked back. I'll think about it. That night, at home, she pulled down the old shoebox from the top of her closet. Inside were old photos. One of her when she was 8, sitting on her dad's shoulders at a protest downtown. Another of her mom braiding her hair before the first day of 6th grade. A folded-up newspaper article from a city council meeting where her aunt had spoken truth to power and got booed. Her family didn't teach her to be loud. They taught her to be clear. They didn't teach her to take revenge. They taught her to take up space, and now she carried all of them with her, in her stillness, in her words, in her fight. Later that night, as the rain tapped against her window, Imani took one last look at the notebook page she'd drawn during lunch. The offering hands, the twisted roots, the rising voices. She added one more thing at the bottom, a girl in a hoodie, standing in the middle of it all, head held high, no face drawn, just an outline. Because that girl could be any of them, could be all of them. Then she closed the notebook, and for the first time in weeks, she slept without flinching. The truth doesn't crash in like thunder. It seeps in, quiet, persistent, inevitable, like water through cracks, like heat under ice. And for Chloe Vickers, the seep had already begun. It started with a whisper in the East Wing girls' bathroom. 2 juniors, not close friends. One was brushing her hair, the other scrolling through her phone. I heard the board actually apologized. One said, the other scoffed. Not really. They just said they messed up. Messed up. She stopped brushing. They let her get suspended over lies. That word lies hung in the air like bleach. Chloe was 2 stalls away, frozen, phone in her hand, screen dim, but her mind burning. She held her breath, didn't flush, didn't move, didn't exist until the door finally creaked and their voices faded down the hallway. By lunch, it was more than whispers. It was reposts. A TikTok had surfaced showing screenshots from Imani's presentation paired with the audio file Chloe never thought would leak. One post, 32,000 views in under 4 hours. The caption read, "The truth always wins." Eventually, the comments were brutal, and not just from random accounts, from people she knew. So she really said that private school behavior at its worst. How you gonna cut someone and then cry when the truth cuts back? Chloe tried to delete her account, but the internet doesn't work like that. Screenshots already lived in a dozen folders, group chats, cloud drives. This wasn't gossip anymore. This was receipts. At the cheer squad meeting that afternoon, Coach Lively cleared her throat and called Chloe to the side. Her voice was professional, but cold. We're going to ask you to step back from performances indefinitely. Chloe's mouth dropped open. What? It's not a punishment. It's a protection measure for the team. And for you. Protection from what? Lively hesitated, then answered. From consequences. Chloe stood still. For the first time, her voice didn't come. Because no one, not even the adults, were trying to cover for her now. That evening, her phone rang. Block number? She answered anyway. Chloe Vickers. Yes, this is Miss Keller from the district. I'm reaching out in regards to your formal conduct record. We're initiating a review of your digital communications connected to the Imani Rhodes matter. You'll be expected to meet with the review board this Friday. A parent or guardian must be present. Chloe's throat tightened. She managed a single word. Okay. The line went dead. At home, her father paced behind the kitchen island. This is exactly what I warned you about, he muttered. You've embarrassed this family. I built this name. You think people are going to buy from someone whose daughter went viral for bullying? Chloe stared at the marble countertop. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, to say it wasn't that bad, but it was, and she knew it. Meanwhile, across town, Imani sat in the corner of the community center with her sketchbook open. She wasn't drawing this time. She was watching. A group of eighth graders sat in a circle, voices low, trading stories of their own. A boy named Jordan had just shared how he stopped coming to school after someone created a fake page with his face in slurs. A girl named Alina said she used to eat lunch in the bathroom because nobody saved her a seat. And then they asked Imani, "How did you make them listen?" She looked down at her hands. Not perfect hands, not delicate. Hands that held pencils, pages, evidence, fire. Then she said, "I stopped waiting for them to listen, and I started telling the truth like they already were." That night, Chloe scrolled through her photos. She stopped at a picture from the first day of school. Her, in full uniform, smile wide, hair curled, perfect. She stared at it for a long time, then deleted it, because it didn't feel like her anymore. Or maybe it never was. At Rock Hill, the hallway still echoed with laughter and sneakers and class bells, but something had changed. There was no announcement, no banners, no viral confession from Chloe, just absence, a kind of social vacuum where her voice used to be. No one said her name out loud, because now they were saying Imani's. By Wednesday, Chloe stopped sitting at her usual lunch table. No one told her to move. No big confrontation. No cafeteria brawl. Just silence. It started on Monday with an empty seat beside her, then another, then a whispered excuse. "Oh, I promised to meet Jess today. Oh, I forgot I have library duty." But she wasn't stupid. She could see it in their eyes. They weren't avoiding lunch. They were avoiding her. At first, she thought it might blow over, that maybe someone else would do something worse and shift the spotlight, that attention would move on, like it always did in high school. But Rock Hill was different now. People didn't just scroll past anymore. They paused. They read. They remembered. And Chloe. She was the memory no one wanted to forget. By fourth period, she tried to raise her hand in AP history. Mr. Tolbert glanced her way, then shifted to another student. She blinked. He never skipped her before. Fifth period. She asked a group mate in biology if they wanted to partner on the lab. The girl looked away and muttered, "I already got someone." The truth of it hit like static. Not a slap, just a slow voltage crawling under her skin. Chloe Vickers was no longer untouchable. She was radioactive. Meanwhile, Imani was building something. Not a comeback, not a revenge tour, something steady, something quiet, something permanent. It started with a message from Ms. Alvarez. "The district wants you to lead a new peer panel on digital conduct. You don't have to say yes, but it's yours if you want it." Imani stared at the message for a long time, then wrote back, "Let's talk." That afternoon, she met Mrs. Alvarez and Mr. Lennox in the library conference room. They sat at the end of a long table with paper packets already prepared. "This is an advisory council," Alvarez said. "Student-led, you build it, you shape it, you decide what matters." Lennox leaned in. "You won't just be fixing what went wrong, you'll be setting the rules before it happens again." Imani opened the packet. Inside a blank flow chart, some policy outlines, and a title suggestion scribbled in the margin, "Student Voice Initiative." She smiled faintly. "I've got a better name," Lennox grinned. "Let me guess. The Hoodie Code." Imani smirked. "Close." By Friday, posters appeared on hallway boards, not flashy, just clean, black ink, white paper, a QR code, and the title, "We Speak Before the Silence Hits, Peer Justice Council, led by students, open to all, first session, Monday, 4 p.m., room B113. Nobody said who created it. They didn't have to. Chloe saw the poster during passing period. She paused in front of it, read the words 3 times. The sting was sharp, not because she disagreed, but because she knew. That space used to be hers, back when people smiled because she was there. Now they smiled when she wasn't. She walked into the girls' bathroom and locked herself in the third stall, same stall she used when she recorded that voice memo weeks ago, the one that started it all. Back then, she thought she was being funny, savage, clever, thought people would laugh and forget. But now she replayed it in her head and didn't hear power. She heard cruelty, and worse, she heard herself, really heard herself. That night, she opened her laptop and started a new email. To student body from Chloe Vickers. Subject a few words. She stared at the blinking cursor, typed, deleted, typed again, then stopped. Because the truth was, she didn't know what to say, not yet. And maybe that was part of the fall too, realizing that even when the fire dies down, the smoke still lingers, and you still have to walk through it. At home, Imani sat on her porch, sketchbook in her lap. She wasn't drawing revenge, or rage, or even justice. She was drawing restoration, healing, possibility. In the center of the page, she sketched a girl sitting cross-legged, one hand extended, not in surrender, in invitation. Not everyone would accept it, but some would. And that was enough, because the fall of one didn't mean the end. It meant the beginning. Monday morning, Imani arrived early, not because she needed to, because she chose to. For the first time since she stepped through Rock Hill's tall, glass doors, she wasn't bracing for anything. No whispers, no stares, no ambush in the hallway, just presence. She carried her sketchbook like a badge, her hoodie tied around her waist instead of over her head. It wasn't armor anymore. It was history. The Peer Justice Council held its first meeting that afternoon. Room B113 was packed. More than 40 students, some she recognized. Others completely new filled every chair, every wall, every stretch of floor space they could find. Imani stood in the center, a clipboard in hand. No podium in sight. She didn't need elevation to lead. She was the elevation. Some of you are here because you saw what happened to me. She began. Some of you are here because it happened to you. She scanned the room, and some of you are here because you helped it happen. And now you don't know where to put that guilt. No one moved. No one argued. She let the silence speak, then continued. This isn't about dragging anyone. It's about drawing a line so we stop letting pain pass for entertainment. That was the moment the room exhaled. And Rock Hill, once again, shifted. Meanwhile, Chloe had stopped walking through the front entrance. She used the side hallway now, kept her AirPods in all day, even when the music wasn't playing. She didn't join class discussions, didn't raise her hand, didn't eat in the cafeteria. Some kids asked if she was transferring. Others didn't ask anything at all. Her old friends didn't unfriend her. They just stopped talking. The slow fade, the invisible exile. The kind that doesn't make headlines, just bruises you can't explain. But Chloe wasn't angry anymore. She was aware. One afternoon, she sat in the counselor's office, fingers picking at a loose thread on her sleeve. Ms. Daniels asked, "What do you want out of this?" "Chloe." "Really?" Chloe didn't look up. "I want to be better," she said. "Not forgiven, not liked, just not this version of me." Daniels nodded. "That's a start." Elsewhere, change had started showing up in unexpected places. Morning announcements included a student-led message on digital empathy. The library created a safe speak box, anonymous. Handwritten notes from students sharing stories, questions, calls for support, and the art wing. They added a new bulletin board beside the trophy case. No medals, no ribbons, just sketches, notes, anonymous voices. At the top, someone had pinned a single phrase in bold, "This is what healing looks like." Imani never said who started it, She didn't have to. 1 week later, Principal Harmon walked into the Peer Justice Council's second meeting. He didn't speak, just sat in the back, listened. Afterward, he pulled Imani aside. "I owe you more than an apology," he said. "You rebuilt something I let fall apart." Imani didn't smile, didn't offer comfort. She simply said, "Make sure it doesn't fall again," then walked past him. That was her grace, firm, forward, uncompromising. That night, she sat on her bedroom floor with Andre. He had just returned from a contract in Virginia, boots still dusted from travel. She showed him the council notes, the photo of the art board, a list of student submissions for the new digital conduct policy. He read everything slowly, then looked at her. "You ever think about going into law?" he asked. Imani smirked. "I ever stopped sketching long enough?" He chuckled. "You're already doing more than half the lawyers I know. You're making systems move." She leaned back against the wall. "I don't want to be famous." "Good," he said. "Fame is noise." She nodded. "I just want to be heard." Andre tapped her sketchbook. "You already are." Back at school, something unexpected happened. A girl named Tara, freshman, braces, usually invisible, posted a poem on the bulletin board. It read, "She walked without shouting, but still cracked the floor. She drew with no colors, but left the walls shaking." Imani saw it between classes. She paused, reread it twice, then tucked the memory into her chest like a note no one else needed to see, because it was happening. Not just the fall of Chloe, but the rise of others. The ones who had waited, watched, learned, and now stepped forward, not to take her place, but to take their own. By the time November settled in with gray skies and bare branches, Imani Rhodes had become more than just a name at Rock Hill High. She wasn't that girl in the hoodie anymore. She wasn't a mystery. She wasn't a target. She was a lesson. And people were finally starting to understand what she'd been trying to teach them all along. Not with shouting, not with fists, but with presence. She walked through the front entrance on Monday morning without her hoodie on. Her hair, what little had grown back, was still short, soft, clean. Her eyes were steady. The first thing she noticed wasn't people staring. It was people not staring. They didn't look through her anymore. They looked at her, not with pity, not with fear, with recognition. She had earned something rare in a place like Rock Hill: respect. In second period, Miss Sperin Alvarez passed around a flyer for the upcoming Student Voices Assembly. Each student could submit a peace essay, spoken word, visual art. 5 would be chosen to be presented live. When the paper landed on Imani's desk, she didn't hesitate. She already knew what she'd share, not for credit, not for claps, but because someone in that audience needed to hear it, the same way she had once needed someone to speak up for her. After class, a sophomore named Juliana, someone who had once laughed when Chloe cut Imani's hair, approached her by the lockers. She didn't have a script, didn't have a speech, just stood there, wringing her fingers. I just wanted to say," she mumbled. "I'm sorry. I didn't say anything when it happened. I should have. I saw your drawing in the hall, the one of the girl walking through scissors. That was you." "Right." Imani nodded once. Juliana lowered her voice. "I started drawing too. After that, just little things. I didn't think I could, but I don't know. You made it feel like it was okay." Imani looked her in the eye. "You don't need permission to speak, just the decision to." Juliana nodded. "Thank you," then walked away. And Imani stood there for a moment, her heart quieter than usual, but fuller, because the truth wasn't just surviving anymore. It was spreading. At lunch, she sat at her usual spot under the big oak in the courtyard, but this time, she wasn't alone. A freshman girl with box braids sat across from her, uninvited but welcome. She had seen Imani speak during the peer council meeting. She didn't say much, just offered half her chips and stayed quiet. Imani smiled, broke the chips in half, and handed one back. Words weren't always necessary to pass on a lesson. That evening, at home, she opened her laptop. On the screen, her submission draft for the Student Voices Assembly. She'd titled it, "The Things They Never Took." She read it out loud in her room, alone. They took my seat. They took my silence. They took my hair. They tried to take my peace, but they never took my story because I never stopped writing it. Even when they erased my name from the list, even when they called it a joke, even when they asked me to be quiet to not make trouble, I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just kept showing up. And every time I did, I left a mark they couldn't scrub out because I wasn't the one who should be ashamed. They were, and now they know it too. When she finished reading it, she didn't cry. She didn't need to. She just saved the file, attached it to an email, hit send, and closed her laptop with a soft, final click. The next morning, the bulletin board near the art room was covered with student notes quotes, doodles, sketches. One caught her eye, a torn page from someone's notebook, in pencil, to the girl who made me stop laughing at the wrong things. You're the reason I started thinking. You're the reason I sat with myself in silence for once. I don't know if you forgive us, but I hope you know we're trying now. Imani stood there for a moment, then added something beside it in soft, black ink. Trying matters, so does staying. Because that's what people misunderstood about power. They thought it was volume, control, status, but the real kind, the kind that lasts, that was presence, consistency, the refusal to disappear. Even when the world tries to shrink you, Imani had learned the lesson now. She was living it. Tuesday came with a thin fog rolling over Rock Hill's football field, the kind that softens everything and makes the world feel like it's holding its breath. Imani stood by the library windows before first period, watching it all. No one bothered her anymore. No one called her names. No one dared say hoodie girl like it was a joke. That word had changed. Now, when people whispered hoodie, they meant power. They meant someone who'd taken a punch and turned it into a platform. And that was the real lesson. During second period, Ms. Alvarez stopped by her desk and dropped a printed email. It was from a student in another school, one Imani had never met. "I saw what you did with your story. It made me write mine. Thank you." No signature, no name. Imani held the page in her hands, fingers tracing the edge like it might disappear. Words mattered, even anonymous ones, especially those, because they were proof that someone had listened, that someone was starting, that someone else wouldn't feel alone. After school, the Peer Justice Council met in room B113. The room was packed, not because people were nosy, because people were ready to learn, to ask, to own the parts they'd played in someone else's silence. Imani stood near the front, not behind a desk, not above anyone, just there. "I'm not here to fix you," she said. "I'm here to show you how I fixed me." She handed out blank cards. "Write down one thing you regret never saying." She told them, to anyone, for any reason. Silence fell over the room. Then pens started to move. One boy, quiet all semester, stared at his blank card for a long time, then finally wrote, "I knew Chloe lied. I just didn't want to be next." He didn't sign it. Didn't need to. Imani collected the cards in a shoebox and taped it shut. "This isn't for the board, not for a teacher. This is for the weight we don't talk about. Now it's here, out of you, off your back." She placed the box in the cabinet. They didn't burn it, didn't bury it. They kept it because healing wasn't erasing, it was remembering better. That night, Imani sat across from Andre at the kitchen table. He looked up from his laptop. "What's next?" She shrugged. "Not sure. You going to run for student body president?" Imani raised an eyebrow. "You serious? You're already doing the job. Might as well wear the badge." She laughed for the first time in days. A full one. No, I think someone else needs to. He leaned back. You're passing the torch already. Not passing. Sharing. Wednesday morning. Chloe stood at her locker and found something taped to the inside. A folded drawing. It was her sketched in pencil. No detail, just an outline, no caption, no name, just her and a mirror. She stared at it, didn't know who left it, didn't know what to feel, but she didn't crumple it. She placed it inside her notebook. Maybe she was still figuring it out. Maybe that was okay. That afternoon, Imani helped a freshman girl reframe her story for a writing contest. The girl wore long sleeves, chewed her lip when nervous, and didn't make eye contact. But her story, it was fire. A piece about being the only girl on the robotics team and being told to just do decorations. Imani helped her sharpen the ending, added a line. They thought I was quiet because I didn't belong. But really, I was watching, waiting, learning. When they finished, the girl looked up for the first time. Thanks, she said. Imani smiled. You did all the work. No, the girl replied. You made me feel like I could. At the end of the day, Miss Harrow, the art teacher, called Imani into the supply room. She pointed to a blank wall, freshly painted, untouched. We want to dedicate it to student voices, drawings, quotes, poems, your idea, your curation. Imani blinked. You want me to run it? No, Harrow said. We want you to own it. Back home, she started planning a new project, a permanent installation. She sketched the first layout in her notebook, a series of hoodies drawn in charcoal, each one different, each one facing forward. Above them, a banner, We Are the Lesson. Because in the end, that was what this had become. Not a story about one girl who fought back, but a lesson in presence, in stillness, in what happens when the quiet one decides not to stay quiet anymore. By the time the school bell rang Friday morning, something had shifted so completely inside Rock Hill High that even the light felt different. It wasn't louder. It wasn't softer. It was clearer, like fog had lifted, like everyone had finally stopped pretending not to see. The story Imani had lived through wasn't just her own anymore. It had seeped into lockers, lunch tables, library shelves. It had become part of the architecture. And for the first time in her life, she walked through those halls not with fear, not with resistance, but with calm authority. She didn't need revenge. She didn't need fame. She had something rarer. She had peace. The Student Voices Assembly was held in the school's main auditorium, hard plastic chairs, buzzing fluorescent lights. A stage too small for the size of what was about to happen. 5 students had been chosen. 4 had already performed by the time Imani's name was called. She stood behind the curtain, calm, not because she wasn't nervous, but because she had already lived through worse. And that's the thing about surviving what tries to break you. You stop being afraid of microphones. The host called her name. She stepped out. Black hoodie, no jewelry, no smile, just eyes that had seen too much to blink. She walked slowly to the center of the stage, unfolded the paper she'd written the night before, then looked up. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was anchored. They said I was too quiet, too serious, too black, too proud, too much. But they were wrong. I wasn't too much. They were too used to girls like me staying small. The room didn't make a sound. She kept going. I didn't ask to be the lesson. I became it. Because you don't get to decide who deserves dignity, and I don't owe you comfort just because you got used to my silence. She paused, scanned the crowd, then said, I am not angry anymore. Not because I forgot, but because I've made peace with the fire. Somewhere in the back, someone stood up, then another, then a row. Not a dramatic ovation, just people quietly, slowly rising. Imani didn't smile, didn't cry. She just folded her paper, stepped off the stage, and for the first time in her life, she didn't shrink as she exited. She expanded. Later that day, in the art hallway, a teacher posted a new sign above the peer-led bulletin board. Silent strength is still strength. Beneath it, new sketches had appeared, new poems, a crumpled note written in blue pen. You made me stop laughing at people just because others did. You made me ask myself why. You made me want to start again. Imani didn't know who wrote it. She didn't need to, because that was the thing about lessons. The best ones don't end with applause. They echo quietly. They change what people do when no one's watching. After school, she walked to the community center to help with the middle school mentoring group. 3 girls, 1 boy, all 6th graders, sat in a circle around her. One of them, Jada, asked, "Is it true they tried to kick you out just because you told the truth?" Amani looked at her. "It's true they didn't like how the truth sounded," she said. "But I didn't leave," another girl whispered. "I get scared when people laugh at me." Amani nodded. "Me too. But scared doesn't mean silent. It just means you're about to grow." That evening, at home, Imani sat on the front porch with her sketchbook on her lap. The sun dipped low behind the houses, leaves scraped across the pavement. Andre came outside, handed her a mug of warm tea. "You've been quiet," he said. She shrugged. "I said what I needed to." He sat beside her, and they heard it. She looked out over the street. "Yeah," she said, "but more than that, I think they felt it." Andre sipped his tea. "You know," he said, "some people spend their whole lives trying to shake the system. You shook it in 3 weeks." She smiled, barely, then turned the page in her sketchbook, drew a girl, not in a hoodie, not hiding, just standing, eyes forward, hands open, underneath. She wrote, "Power isn't in being feared, it's in being felt." And that was the lesson. There were no cameras this time, no reporters lurking behind terminal pillars, no social media gotcha moments, no one holding out a mic, asking her how it felt to come full circle. Simone Carter didn't need ceremony. She had her silence. She had her steps. And most importantly, she had her hoodie, Gate C12. Denver International Airport. It looked the same, but this time, she wasn't boarding. She wasn't being questioned. She wasn't being watched. She came to watch. It was early, 6 to 15 Eptom, early. The kind of early where the lights still hum and the floors still smell like bleach and jet fuel. Simone had always preferred that hour when everything felt unpolished, unperformed, real. She sat down 3 rows away from the gate. No entourage, no badge, just her notebook, her quiet eyes, and that calm, grounded posture that had become her signature. There was a new gate agent now, a young woman, probably mid-20s, bright blue eyes and braids. She looked sharp, focused, but kind, professional, but not performative. Simone watched as she greeted passengers. No fake smile, no scanning for suspicion, just presence. 1 passenger, black. Maybe 19, approached the desk with his boarding pass. Hood up, eyes low, headphones in. The agent leaned forward slightly and said, "You're good, sweetheart. Group 1 today." He looked up, surprised, nodded. "Thanks." It was a small moment, but for Simone, it was everything. She opened her notebook. Page 213, blank. She wrote, "The system didn't collapse. It cracked just enough to let breath in." A woman sitting nearby recognized her, didn't say a word, just smiled, raised her coffee in a quiet toast. Simone returned the gesture. That was enough. She didn't want a speech. She wanted silence that respected silence. A little later, a man approached her, tall, bearded, wearing an Allied Sky ID badge. "Excuse me, miss?" Carter. She looked up. I wanted to say something. I work in internal ops, not front line, but I followed everything. I saw it happen. And then I saw it shift. Simone stayed still. I don't expect anything. He added, I just want you to know my team changed because you didn't. That landed harder than he probably knew. Simone nodded. He stepped away. For 2 hours, she sat and observed. No big gestures, no policy reviews, just watching. The same gate that once humiliated her, now a space trying to relearn dignity. Was it perfect? No. But people weren't flinching the same way. Passengers weren't apologizing for existing. Employees weren't avoiding eye contact with each other. Simone closed her notebook and stood. She walked to the window, where planes glided in and out. Metal birds full of people. Unaware they were flying through something, a black woman in a hoodie helped build without ever shouting. As she turned to leave, she passed a security officer standing post near the checkpoint. Black, mid-50s. He looked at her, then looked again. I remember that day, he said, his voice low. I wasn't on duty, but I heard, and I watched what came next. He didn't ask for a selfie, didn't offer a handshake, just looked at her and said, sometimes the loudest voice in the room is the one that waits. She smiled, for real this time. Outside, the Colorado air was crisp, sky-wide, blue, clean. She walked along the sidewalk toward the terminal's edge. Across the street, a woman held a toddler in one hand and her suitcase in the other. The toddler pointed, Mommy, that's the lady in the story. The mother smiled. Yes, baby, that's her. Simone heard it, didn't stop, because that story, it wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to everyone who'd ever been told to move aside, to step out of line, to prove they belonged. Now, because of her, the line was different. The gate was different. The air somehow felt different too. As she walked, a sign flashed above her on a digital banner. Welcome to Denver, where every journey matters. She didn't laugh, didn't scoff. She just pulled her hoodie forward, tightened the drawstrings, and kept walking, not toward a destination, but toward a continuation. Because the hoodie didn't stop at gate C12. It moved, carried, passed hands, became symbol, then signal. That presence matters, that silence protects, that walking away is sometimes louder than standing your ground. The bus pulled into Eastwood, Georgia, just after sunset. Simone stepped off without hurry, the gravel crunching beneath her sneakers, no press, no welcome banner, just dusk, crickets, and the faint hum of porch radios echoing down the street. She had come home again, not for rest, not for applause, but to return something. Because the truth is, Simone hadn't built her stillness alone. She was taught it, raised in it, sharpened by a community that had always known how to survive beneath systems that pretended not to see them. And now she was here to plant the story in the soil it came from. The next morning, Simone visited Eastwood Middle School. The halls smelled like pencil shavings and cafeteria bread nostalgia wrapped in linoleum. Principal Harris met her at the front door, a tall black woman with locks tied back and an iron gaze softened by kindness. We cleared a room. She said, no speeches, just space. Simone nodded. They walked together down the hall, past classrooms filled with kids tapping at Chromebooks, whispering through math sheets, doodling in the margins of things. They reached room 212, a space usually used for testing. Today, it was a circle, no desks, just chairs, just people. The students came in slowly, middle schoolers awkward, sharp, too observant for their own peace. Some recognized her, most didn't. She liked it better that way. When they all sat down, Simone didn't introduce herself, didn't tell her story. Instead, she asked one question. When was the last time you were told to be quiet? One girl raised her hand. Yesterday. She said, I was talking during roll call. I wasn't even being loud. Another boy said, I get told to calm down even when I'm just excited. A third kid, quieter, looked at his shoes. I get sent out the room before I even speak. Simone nodded, then said something that shifted the air. They don't always mean your volume. Sometimes they mean your existence. They sat in that circle for an hour. No lessons, just voices, just truth. One kid asked if she ever yelled back. Simone shook her head. I didn't yell. I documented, because a system built to ignore you will always listen to what it's scared to read. She pulled out her notebook, worn, frayed, full, held it up. This is where I kept everything they tried to bury. The kids leaned forward. She passed it around. Page by page. They flipped through stories, quotes, scribbled thoughts in hotel lobbies and back seats and gate lounges. It didn't look like power, but it felt like it. After the session, a student named Khalil caught up with her near the library. Ms. Carter, he asked, is silence like a weapon? She thought for a second. No. She said, it's a doorway. Most people never learn how to walk through it. But when you do, you realize it leads somewhere stronger than noise ever could. Khalil nodded. I think I'll try it. You won't always get it right, Simone said, but try anyway. That evening, Simone walked to the corner store where she used to buy Now and Laters after school. Same faded awning, same creaky door. Inside, the owner recognized her instantly. You back for good, he asked. No, just long enough. She replied. He slid a small envelope across the counter. No name. Been here a week. Kid dropped it off. Said it was for you. She opened it outside. Under the street lamp. Inside was a drawing. A girl in a hoodie. Notebook in hand. Feet planted like roots. At the top, in uneven pencil, thank you for not yelling. Thank you for staying. Simone folded the paper slowly, placed it in her tote bag, right beside her notebook. Back at her father's house, she sat on the porch, journal in hand, pen resting gently between her fingers. The night was thick with summer. Cicadas droned like old clocks, and for the first time in a while, she let herself rest, not in retreat, but in continuance, because movements don't always march. Sometimes they sit, they write, they remember, and that too is resistance. She scribbled one final note before going in for the night. They watched me walk. They thought I was leaving, but I was only making a path. The final morning was warm, not summer yet, but enough sun to remind you that the cold had passed. Simone Carter stood at the edge of her old street in Eastwood, Georgia, same cracked pavement, same leaning mailboxes, same hush of a town waking up without rush. She wore the same hoodie, the one that had made headlines, the one they once used as a reason to remove her. Now it was just hers again. No symbol, no signal, just fabric and memory. She began to walk, not toward any destination, not away from anything either, just forward, a slow, even pace, shoes hitting sidewalk with rhythm, not power, not defiance, just presence. That's what they never understood. She didn't walk to prove anything. She walked because that's how she moved through the world, one quiet, undeniable step at a time. As she passed the corner store, a boy on a bike looked up from his phone. He stopped pedaling. Hey, he said, you're the lady. Simone stopped. Which one, she asked. The one who didn't yell. He said, the one who wrote it all down. She smiled, nodded, still writing. She said, he grinned, turned his bike, and kept riding. Further down the block, she passed the old barber shop. The door was open. Old men inside talking politics and football and how the world never listens until it's forced to. One of them waved. "We see you. Baby, we see you." Simone tipped her chin in acknowledgement. Didn't stop, because this walk wasn't about being seen. It was about remembering who she'd always been before the headlines, before the hearings, before the flight. Half a mile later, she reached the old bridge near the train tracks. That's where her father used to take her when she needed to think. They never talked much there, just sat, watched trains roar beneath them, imagined where they were going, talked with their silence. She stood there now, hand resting on the rusty railing. A breeze lifted the edge of her hoodie. She didn't fix it. Behind her, footsteps, soft, unhurried. She turned. A young woman, early 20s maybe, approached. Hoodie on, notebook in hand. "Minnan Carter," she asked. Simone nodded once. "I read your story." The girl said, "I started writing mine." She held up the notebook like proof. Dog-eared, scribbled, alive. Simone didn't reach for it, just said, "Keep going, even when they look past you, especially then." The girl nodded, turned around, walked back the way she came. Simone watched her, one more quiet force building in the world. She stayed at the bridge for an hour, didn't write, didn't scroll, just stood, still, because she knew what came next. And this time, she didn't need to narrate it. She had passed the baton. Back in town, news had already spread, not through media, not online, just mouths, whispers, that Simone was home, that the hoodie had returned. People didn't flood the streets. They didn't need to. They simply stood where they were, on porches, in doorways, near buses, at park benches, and they watched her walk, because she wasn't marching, she was reminding. At one intersection, a small group of kids lined up, 4 of them, black, brown, one white, all in hoodies, not store-bought to match, just their own, zipped up, pulled tight. They didn't say a word. They just walked behind her, quiet, one step behind, then beside. No chants, no slogans, just footsteps. And when she looked over her shoulder, there were more. A mother with a stroller, a college kid with headphones, a janitor in work boots, all walking, all in rhythm. No one leading, no one following, just moving, together. By the time they reached the school playground, a dozen people had joined. No plan, no signs, just presence. Simone stopped, turned, looked at each face. No one asked for a speech, and so she gave them the only thing she had always offered: stillness. She nodded, stepped off the path, let them keep walking, because this wasn't about her anymore. It never really had been. She sat on the bench by the swing set, notebook open, pen in hand, and wrote they thought the walk ended at the gate, but it only started with me. She closed the notebook, pulled her hood up, and smiled. Sometimes a revolution doesn't come with a microphone. It comes with a notebook, a gray hoodie, and a woman who refused to raise her voice because she knew the world would hear her anyway. Simone Carter didn't fight to be famous. She didn't perform pain for the cameras. She just walked through the fire with her silence intact and let the system burn itself down in the reflection of her stillness. And in doing so, she lit a path, not just for herself, but for every young person who's ever been pulled aside, talked down to, or told they don't belong. Now, that path is open, and the hoodie walks on. It walks in school hallways, on sidewalks, through airports, and in every space where someone once had to shrink to fit. Because Simone showed us you don't have to shout to be powerful, you just have to stand. And when you do, the world will move. If this story moved you, if it made you feel seen, understood, or inspired, then let the message walk a little further. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories just like this. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today, and don't forget to turn on the bell so you never miss a voice that speaks without needing to shout. This is Silent Power Stories, where the quiet ones don't get left behind, they lead. And remember, the next time someone underestimates you, don't yell, just keep walking. They'll hear you.